Hey Bookbellas and fellas, today I'm going to be giving you a book haul. So much for that accountability thing. This was my birthday month and so a lot went on and I pretty much justified. I'm just like, it's my birthday month. Because you know, when you get a birthday, you have a whole month. You don't have a single day, right? Anyway, there's a lot of books here and I just want to go ahead and get down to the book haul. So the first thing that I bought is Maya Angelou, The Complete Poetry. This has a ton of poetry from her. I haven't really read a lot by Maya Angelou, but I have been very much interested in getting into the stuff that she's written as far as poetry goes. She was definitely an icon, and it's not exactly modern poetry, but it's not exactly like super old either. And so I'm very excited to get into this. I've read some of her poetry and I really liked what I read, the little samples and tidbits. I haven't read anything in its entirety, but I'm very excited to be getting into this. So the next collection of books I got from Amazon secondhand, and I actually don't really mind getting library books because I like how sometimes they tell a tale, like, you know, where they've been. And so I actually ended up getting the whole Half a King trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I am very excited to be getting into this. This trilogy is about a guy who decided that he was going to end up being king, even though he really didn't want to be. From what I've heard about this series, he has some sort of disability, and that disability didn't really make him ideal for being king. Something happens and he ends up having to end up going for the throne anyway. He's not exactly happy about it, but he doesn't really like the alternative if he doesn't. I've heard a little bit about this, not too much on BookTube, but this is another series that I've been very much excited to be getting into, and what better reason to splurge than my birthday month, right? So the next book was released towards the beginning of the month. It's by Patrick Ness. It's called And the Ocean Was Our Sky, and this is kind of a retelling of Moby Dick from the whale's perspective. I did a full in-depth review. I will leave a link for you to be able to watch that. I don't want to go too much in depth. If you want to know more about it, just follow the link. But this was actually a very interesting concept because you were listening to the whole story of Moby Dick told from a whale's perspective, Bathsheba. And Bathsheba is actually a hunter. But the interesting thing about this is that until about 3 chapters in, you don't even know that they're whales. Patrick Ness does such an amazing job humanizing these whales that you don't even really realize it until like they slowly start alluding to more and more things that whales can do. I really did enjoy this. The illustrations in this, I do want to show you guys like a little bit about the illustrations. These illustrations are just gorgeous, and they have so many beautiful things in here, very black and white with hints of red, and it's just gorgeous, and I absolutely enjoyed this book. I actually haven't read Patrick Ness before this, but I'm definitely going to be continuing on with some more things by him. So the next book I got from Book Outlet, it's called 100 Nights of Hero. This is actually a graphic novel, and I've been really feeling graphic novels lately, and when I saw this on Book Outlet, I was very excited because this was on the top of my to-be read list. And this is about a guy who is protecting this girl, and he protects this girl every night from this other guy. I think that's what it's about. And basically, like, it's just this kind of like love story, and I don't know, I've just been kind of in the mood for a little bit more lovey-dovey stuff, and I know that's kind of odd because Halloween's coming up. There's so many things that I want to read, and I want to read spooky stuff, and I want to read some fantasy, but I saw this and I'm just like, this is going to be really good because this is going to be a nice quick read. The next thing that I got was Catwoman, Soul Stealer by Sarah J. Maas. This is actually what it looks like without the dust jacket. I have the dust jacket off of this right now because I have been reading it about 60 pages in, and it's actually told all from Selena Kyle's perspective, and they do have some old villains in this, and it's very definitely like vintage. This is part of the DC Icon series that's coming out, and this is the 3rd book that's come out. They've already had Wonder Woman, and they've had I believe Batman or Superman, or they're coming out with one more of them. I think they've already come out with Batman, and I think they're getting ready to come out with Superman. But this is all told from Selena Kyle's perspective. You get to see a little bit about her background history with her sister. You get to hear a little bit about her mom and how she grew up. And then you also get to go into how she became the cat burglar that we have so come to know and love. So there was another book from Book Outlet that I got. I am a huge fan of Sherlock from BBC, and come to find out, they converted it into a manga, which is another graphic novel. I am a huge Benedict Cumberbatch fan. I love pretty much everything that he's done. I loved him in Khan as Star Trek, and having a novelized version of him was just so exciting. I found it on Book Outlet also because I love Book Outlet. There's so many good things on Book Outlet, and when I saw this, I got really excited. I know this is the first in a trilogy, and there are actually 2 more. Study in Pinks, which is what this is called. That's the name of it. It's by Steve Moffat and Margaret Gatiss. This is supposed to be a conversion from the BBC into a graphic novel form. This was also very exciting to see. So the next book is also from Book Outlet. It is called Born by James Vandermeer. This woman finds this thing out in the wild. She's not sure if it's a plant or animal, but it's kind of a mixture of both. It's a science fiction story, and I've heard a lot of really interesting things about this. And I hope that it lives up to the hype for me. I am kind of picky about science fictions. I like gritty. It's also hard for me to get into science fiction sometimes because, you know, being the fact that it's hard recesses of space, sometimes there's not enough warm fuzzy feelings to keep me interested. But I'm hoping that this will be totally different from that, because I think she actually gets attached to this thing. And so I'm hoping that this will be a little bit more fluffy than the average science fiction. The next book that I have is The Poetry of Robert Frost. This is another poetry collection. I've been kind of interested in getting into more older style poetry. I like a lot of the newer stuff too, but it seems like there's this growing trend with modern poetry where we have a ton of people who are going for the princess in distress, and don't get me wrong, I love those. But I was kind of looking for just a little bit more variety in my poetry, and I feel like going back and forth between modern poetry and classic poetry is going to give me the variety that I've been craving from poetry selections. So also from Book Outlet, I got Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. And this is all about how the cosmos reflect different archetypes. I'm not super familiar with exactly what this is about. I read the synopsis, and I know that's supposed to coincide with archetypes. I'm not sure if it has to do with constellations or the way things are flowing in the night sky, but there are some ideas that I have that circulate around this book, and I'm really hoping to get into this soon because I'm hoping to branch out a little bit more with things that I've been thinking about. So yeah, Cosmos and Psyche. This was also a really good deal on Book Outlet. So the next book I saw a while back, and it was right after Prince died. It was The Most Beautiful, My Life with Prince by Maddie Garcia. I believe this is his girlfriend or it's his wife. Anyway, regardless, it gives a very much in-depth look to Prince's life and how he lived, and probably a little bit about his drug addiction problem as well. I like intimate looks into people's lives because it's very personal, it's very raw, it's very realistic, and this seemed like a very good place to start with Prince. I found this on Book Outlet also for a good price, and it looks fascinating, so I'm hoping to get into this as well soon. So the next book that I have to get into here, I was looking at Amazon for quite a while for it, but I didn't want to pay full price, and when I saw it on Book Outlet, I'm just like, okay, this is the reason I'm gonna have to make this order, because I've been wanting this for a while, and I did, of course, see a few other things that I've been highly intrigued with, but this, The Girls Burn Brighter by Saboha Rao. This is about 2 girls who have a very strong bond and they're driven apart by circumstance, and it's a story of friendship. A while back it was very hyped up, and so now that the hype's gone, I'm really excited to be getting into this because I do love stories about girl friendship, about the bonds that keep us together, about the things that drive us apart, and in spite of that, the bonds that are just so strong that no amount of distance could ever separate. So the next selection of books that I have is from Book of the Month Club. This is The Silence of Girls by Pat Barker. This is a retelling of the Odyssey from the woman's perspective. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. It made Achilles very human, and I don't want to get too much into this because I will be having a spoilery review coming up soon and a non-spoilery review. I am still working on editing the video footage for that because I ended up having so many thoughts about it that the editing process ended up taking a lot more time than I thought it was going to. I was hoping to have it up this past Friday, but turns out that I had so much video footage to go through that I'm now having to split it up into 2 different videos. So I'm not going to go too much more in depth. If I have it, the second I have it up though, I will link it in this video so that you guys will be able to get into it. But I do like the very personal look at a woman's perspective, and not just a woman's perspective in Achilles' camp, a slave girl. And it was very enlightening to see how they were treated. And it was also very disheartening to know like that women back in these times were treated more like property than they were as real human beings, and they were gambled off and they were traded off and they were really not worth very much. And it was really sad to see that, but this was also a very wonderfully enlightening book, and I do highly recommend it. The next book that I have from Book of the Month Club is Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. When I saw this on there, this had been another book that I had been looking at Amazon for, but I got it for $10 because it was an add-on, and I really am very excited about this. It's about this person who has bipolar disorder. I hear that the representation for bipolar disorder is very, very well done in this book, and you don't often see a really good representation for bipolar disorder. I really like the books that revolve around mental health and mental illness because we don't always understand what's going on with other people. And in order to understand what's going on with other people, sometimes we have to take a glimpse into their daily lives and the things that they struggle with. And I really enjoy reading about mental health because we get a chance to do that. It's like our little window into somebody else's world that can make us more empathetic to their situation and really begin to understand that for some people, every day is a struggle. I'm very excited to be reading this very soon. The next book that I have for Book of the Month Club is November Road. This is a crime mystery about a woman who is on the run from the mob. I saw that this had really good reviews. I do like some crime stories. I think they're very interesting if done right. This had gotten really decent reviews. I think it was like a 4 stars on Goodreads. And so I was kind of interested to see how I liked it. It's been a while since I've dove into a crime fiction, but I hope that this will live up to my expectations. So I do have one. This one I got from Amazon. I've been slowly collecting these. I found the first few on Book Outlet, and now I'm going into the ones where I can get them from Amazon. This is The Ancient Magnus Bride, number 8. I have read the first 6 books in this series, and I really, really enjoyed this series. It's about this girl who's considered a slave baggie. She actually manufactures her own power that other people can absorb and use against her. She is actually disowned and then put up for auction, and then she is bought by Elias, and he turns out to be like this ancient alchemist, and not everybody sees his skull face. I don't know if you can see that, but not everybody can see his skull face. Sometimes when he's out in public, he actually puts on an illusion and makes himself more human, but he calls her his bride, but he doesn't do anything creepy with her. He's very respectful of her boundaries. This is targeted at teens. I did enjoy the premise for this. It's definitely like powdered up, and you can definitely tell it is for teenagers because it doesn't have like the rawness like that some of the other mangas I've read have, like Death Note. Death Note is very raw. This has got a lot more powder to it, and I really do enjoy this series, and I can't wait to get more into this because I usually binge about 2 of these at a time. So the next book that I have is The Wedding Date. This is a very powdered up romance, and I do love the occasional romance. I've heard a lot of good things about this. I actually saw it on Amazon for a pretty good price, and so I decided to go ahead and pick it up because, once again, no self-control, and besides, you know, I get a whole month for my birthday, right? So 2 people get stuck in an elevator together, and then they agree to go to a wedding together. This is the night before Drew's ex is going to be married, and he, I think, is still a little hung up on her. I don't think they actually explicitly say that in the description, but that's kind of the gist I get. He doesn't want to go to this wedding alone, so he decides to get someone to go with him, and he actually ends up having this fake relationship with this girl, and they end up falling in love. And I have to tell you that I love the fake relationship trope. That trope is so much fun. It's like finding love in unexpected places, and I just love that trope so much. It is fun, it is insightful, And it's just, you know, like, it's just the powdery romance that I think I've been craving. So the next book I read, and this has been a very anticipated read, and it's gotten a lot of feed on BookTube, and I'm very excited about it. This is Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. I did end up reading this month. I will leave a link for the full review, which is non-spoilery. I tried to make it as non-spoilery as possible. It kind of gives you a little bit of an introduction to the book itself and some of my thoughts regarding the book. This is about a kid named Michael who goes to a Catholic school, and he's actually not Catholic. He's an atheist. He has been moving so much. His dad has a job that consistently keeps moving. They have moved 4 times in 10 years. Michael is really fed up with the moves. They keep telling him we're not going to move again, and every time they do. He goes to the school where he's pretty sure that he's not going to have anything in common with any of these people, and he ends up finding a really good friend named Lucy. Lucy is very outspoken. She's very ahead of her time. She actually gets into an argument with another nun that says that well-behaved women make history, and she's like, no, ma'am, well-behaved women rarely make history, and she outright corrects her. And then she proceeds to give the teacher, who's also a nun, several examples of where women in the Bible, who are saints or across the board, have made history by becoming outcast and being ahead of their time. Well, Lucy eventually wants to be a priest. And of course, in the Catholicism, that's not really something that's heard of, but she's hoping to change things. She's hoping to make things better. This was so heartwarming, and I really did enjoy it. Like I said, I will leave a link if you are interested in watching the video that I made for this, because I did thoroughly enjoy this. I felt like this had so many valuable things to say. So the rest of the books are part of my most anticipated books that came out this month. This was such a big month for book releases, and I am just so excited to read all of these books because there are just so many books that I just got so excited about. One of the books didn't come out this month, but this is Stormrunner by J.C. Cervantes, and this is part of the Rick Riordan imprints, which is basically he takes mythology and he retells it in the form of a story to teach people about mythologies of various religions. Rick Riordan himself mainly focused on Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Roman mythology, those kind of things. Well, then he created imprints so that other people could focus on mythologies from all different walks of life. So they had an Indian style mythology that recently came out, and this one is actually about Mayan mythology. I've always been very fascinated with Mayan mythology. It has so many interesting things about it, and when I saw that they were coming out with an imprint for Mayan mythology, I had to get it, and not to mention this cover is freaking gorgeous. And then also we have orange, and it's so pretty, and I'm just very excited for this. And also we have this super buttery cover, and it's just shiny, and it's just, I'm so excited for this. So a few months ago, I read this trilogy. I read it all in the same month, and I binge read it because I did thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoyed the first one more than I enjoyed the second two. The second two I struggled with just a little bit just because of some of the things that were going on in it, and I felt some of them were very controversial. Mainly the fact that you don't really get a lot of feminist vibe from the second book, especially because Matthew is very strong-headed and he's kind of controlling, borderline. I mean, I know that they project him as being very protective, but I got The Times Convert by Deborah Harkness, and this is actually the 4th book in the All Souls universe, and the first 3 books were considered the All Souls trilogy. Well, I'm just going to discuss the first book and a little bit about this one because I don't want to give too much away, considering the fact that this is a 4th book in a series. So basically you have Matthew Good, who is a vampire. He's 500 years old. He's been around for quite a while, and he's been searching for a book, part of the Ashmole's collection. This book is a book that talks about how everything was created, how vampires were created, how humans were created, how demons were created, and he's been searching for it for a long time. He runs into this girl named Diana Bishop, who somehow, after all of these hundreds of years for him looking for this book, Diana kind of just stumbles upon it. She's also a scholar. She studies alchemy at Oxford alongside Matthew. They're kind of colleagues, but he's in a different department. He's in biology, and she's in the alchemy area. And so basically they kind of hit it off. She ends up going back through and giving back the book because it freaks her out. Like the book starts moving and it starts doing weird things, and she's just like, what the heck's going on? So she decides to go ahead and take it back to them. I really liked the whole concept of that. It's kind of like she's a witch, he's a vampire. There's a covenant that says that they are forbidden to be together because they have to keep the bloodlines pure. And so it's kind of like this Romeo and Juliet sort of thing with vampires and witches, and I really, really liked that concept. This book actually follows Marcus, who was made by Matthew, and it kind of talks about how they met, how they got started, and then it also is kind of about the romance between Marcus and Phoebe, who are very much in love, and she's a human and she's willing to become a vampire. And so like it's kind of like this whole back and forth thing, but like I don't want to talk too much more about this because I know that this is the 4th book in a series. So the next book is going to be perfect for Halloween, and it is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I am digging this cover. I like the little, it looks like it's stitching in the shape of Frankenstein. I love the details. This is coming from the perspective of Elizabeth in the Frankenstein story. It's all about Frankenstein, but it's told from a female perspective, and I really like these retellings from the female perspective. I was kind of skeptical. This was one of the books that I wasn't sure if I really wanted to read, but honestly, like it's been getting a lot of really good reviews, and it's going to be perfect for the spooky season that we have coming up, October. So the next book that I have here is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This has been all over BookTube, and I am so excited to be getting this. I heard it's very heart-wrenching, very raw, and I love raw books, and I love when they're heart-wrenching. So this book is told back and forth between a news broadcast and from Sadie herself. Sadie's little sister Maddie was murdered, and so Sadie decides to take it upon herself to get a car and go out and try to find the murderer of her sister, which is, of course, very devastating to her. So this goes in back and forth between what we hear on the newscasts and also what we hear from Sadie's perspective as she tries to locate the killer of her poor sister who died. I've heard so many good things about this, and this is going to be such a fun read. So the next book also seemed like it's going to be really good for the fall season because it is about how sometimes we make bargains with devils, particularly a village. This is Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton, and this is on one of my most anticipated for September releases. This cover, I was not expecting that this cover was going to be so shiny, but when I saw the cover, when I pulled it out, I was like in cover awe because this was fabulous. So this village makes a bargain with the devil, and several years later, these two people, one's a witch and the other one's an outcast, they are furiously in love, and then something goes wrong with the bargain. I am not too familiar exactly like everything that's going on with this. The description of this book is very, very vague, and I'm kind of glad that it is because it allows me to read the inside without having to worry about me getting any spoilers. I do like it when they keep those descriptions vague because there are so many things that I don't want to know. I want to be able to experience them for myself. But I'm hoping that as soon as I get this read, I will be able to do an in-depth review for you because I have been so wanting to read this, and I really haven't heard a ton about descriptions for this, and I want to be able to get a better feel for it and be able to give you guys a better feel for it as well. So the next book I read in a few days, this was one of my most anticipated of the year because the first one was just so fabulous. I read Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, and it was everything that I wanted it to be. It was amazing, and I'm not going to go too much in detail. I kind of want to do more of a description and kind of talk about a few things in a non-spoilery sense for this book. So I don't want to say too much, but I will say like that the first book is about this guy named Eli and this guy named Victor, and they are EOs, which are people with extraordinary abilities. They're both studying in med school, and they decide to come up with a theory on how to become extraordinaries. Well, how they become extraordinary is through a near-death experience, and usually whatever last thought they had was what power manifests inside them. This was a wonderful twist on superheroes and supervillains and everything, and it kind of made you think that just because a guy looks like he is a good guy doesn't necessarily mean that he is. And the first book was just so amazing. It was a 5 stars for me. It was one of my all-time favorites, and I have to tell you right now that this exceeded that one, and it also got 5 stars, and I have to talk about this in another video because I just loved it so much. We are on to the last book, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I am in the middle of this right now, and I begrudgingly started filming because I had so much trouble pulling myself away from this. This is about a girl named April who is working at a startup company. She works a lot. She doesn't really get a chance to do things that she's very passionate about. She actually has a degree in graphic design. And one day she is going home at about 3 o'clock in the morning from her job because they kept her really, really late. And she looks over and she sees this giant samurai statue, this metal samurai statue, and she calls her friend, and her friend comes and videotapes her, and it's a video that ends up going really viral. April actually names the samurai New York City Carl. And these Carls end up popping up. There's at least 5 other ones that pop up randomly, like all over the place, and nobody knows where they came from. Actually, the odd thing is when they showed up, the footage for the video cameras went down. And so there's so much intrigue in this, and so far I'm really enjoying this, and I'll probably be talking about this more next month because I do want to do a review for this one as well. There was so many good books this month, and it was just such a great reading month, but I will talk about that more when I do my September wrap-up, which will come to you very soon. This was the last book that I had to talk about today, but I had to say, like, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I do appreciate when you guys watch my videos. I love it when you comment. I love that you guys are tuning in and watching all the way through. If you guys are still with me and got to this point, so thank you so much for coming and watching my channel and supporting me. I really appreciate that. And I hope to see you guys again very soon. If you guys like this video, hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon if you'd like to receive emails every time I post, and hit the little like button if you like this video. As always, I will see you again very soon.